Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is presented by Sports Field Management Association. This is the first week of our four-part series of post-conference education. Our featured speaker today is Wes Ganobcik. Wes is the Director of Field Operations for the Columbus Clippers. He has worked in professional baseball for 22 years. He has been a head groundskeeper at the AAA level for the past 15 years. Aside from his professional experience, he is on numerous SFMA committees and is on the MILB Symposium Board. Helping the next generation in this industry is a passion. Today, he will be presenting what the next generation should know about choosing a job. Attendees will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A feature and they will be answered throughout the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. You may go ahead and get started.
Cool. Thanks, Kristen. And like she said, feel free to ask questions. Happy to be interactive here. I think that I guess I can't see you guys, but hopefully at least a few of you were at our presentation last week on Thursday morning, and with Alan and Nick and Jerry. So I'll wind up covering a lot of the same kind of stuff and directing the same topic area, but hopefully this helps out both students looking at internships and trying to make a decision on what's best for them, as well as maybe if you're either a student graduating looking at your first full-time job, or maybe you've even had a full-time job and looking for that next step and trying to make those decisions. So either way, hopefully all of this stuff helps you out and just gives you some things to think about. Okay. So, basically I would say to start out, think about, again, your time at school and in college, or, or trade school, or in high school. Obviously, Drew and some other people are running some great high school programs, so when you're in school and getting that formal education, think about your preparation and what you're trying to accomplish and what you want to learn, and at least concepts. I don't think it's so important, and maybe some of the academics will get angry with me for saying it, but I don't think it's so important to memorize everything, especially some of the Latin names of things and some of the different very specific terminologies. I think it's much more important to understand the concepts and get the big picture. I think that there's a lot of things that you can very easily look up, especially in today's day and age, where you can Google things, you can keep notes on your phone, and you can get some really fantastic books and all kinds of resources to look up that very much more detailed and important information. So just make sure when you're going through school, and whether it's those high school programs or college, really try to get the big picture concepts. Okay. So when you're looking for the experience portion of it, I think that especially in baseball, the area where I've been for my whole career, but really in any aspect of our industry, whether it's in one of the rectangle sports or park and rec, or the university, where you wind up much more spread out and get a little taste of everything, high school, K through 12, everything's going to be a little bit different. And so make sure that when you're getting those experiences, you take everything possible out of the situation. Okay. So I think that I don't remember if it was Alan or Nick talking on Thursday last week, but they were mentioning the importance of having fun, when you take an internship, and experience in life as well. And I think that that's very important. But I think that on the flip side of that, as much as we're seeing universities and schools, kind of that school year keeps expanding out into the spring, and it keeps starting earlier and earlier in the summer. Us us as full-time folks and facility managers, we're seeing interns less than I feel like ever before. And, same thing from your aspect, you're seeing those internships really shrink down to 2.5 or 3 months. And it's just not a whole lot of time to get that experience. And so, I'd really say try to make sure that you're getting as many hours in as possible, and really try to take an internship with the thought of working and pulling that experience away. Okay, so when you get an internship and you go and you find the right spot, make sure you ask questions and ask to participate. Okay, so don't be an annoyance and constantly be bugging. I think that you'll see I'll talk about the same kind of thing a few steps down, but be professional, but do try to create a relationship with that head groundskeeper and the assistants and all the seasonal folks there, and the other interns, because you're going to learn different things from every single person that you're working with. And again, I've had interns in my past that run the gamut. I've had really fantastic ones that really have a great attention to detail, work hard, and do a good job. And so what winds up happening with those folks is, we get them involved in all kinds of things, and they wind up with a really great experience, and they get to do practically everything out here. And then we've got other ones that tend to be lazy and just do what they're asked, just kind of, sit back, and they don't necessarily do a bad job, but, they're not really looking to learn more or do more or ask to be involved in more, more things. And, so it's less of a productive experience for them. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to explain, is that when you go to an internship, make sure you get the nose to the grind, and really try to do a good job, and really try to participate in as many aspects of the job as possible. Okay, and when you go out there, be a sponge, try to soak up everything, look around, and in my next step, understand the difference between being curious and being nosy. Okay, being nosy is just kind of looking up and being like, oh, well, that person's doing that, or that person's doing that, and oh, I wish I was doing that instead. There's a difference between being nosy and being curious. So, make sure you do keep your head up and look around and soak in what's going on, because it's important that if you rotate jobs, maybe every week, or not necessarily going to be every day, but, in baseball, maybe every homestand you rotate jobs or tasks. Well, you need to understand, you need to be able to look up and see what other people are doing. And so when you're doing that, it makes more sense. And not only that, but you need to pay attention to the whole flow of a workday, understand what everybody's doing to start the day, and then understand, because it's incredibly important, how one thing can't be done until the next thing gets done, which can't be done until the next thing gets done. Okay. So those are very, very important parts of, it's not just learning how to perform a task. It's learning, the speed that needs to get done, and how you going too slow can hold up the entire production. Okay. Beyond that, make sure you really learn professionalism, learn how to network. Okay, like I said, really try to create a relationship with everybody there that you go and intern with, from your head groundskeeper. Well, again, that could be in any sport and any line of, any branch of our industry. I'm not just talking about baseball, but, create a relationship with that head, the head groundskeeper, with all the assistants, as well as with the other interns, because those interns, those are going to be your peers for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So make sure that you create and hold on to good relationships with those folks, because they're going to be the people that you wind up turning to for the majority of your career. From the professionalism aspect, that's incredibly important. I think the golf side of the turf industry has gotten pretty far ahead of us on that aspect. That's stuff that I'm going to touch on for a lot of these slides and a lot of this conversation, because I think that professionalism is one of the key points for us to really move forward as an industry, to garner more respect and to be able to demand a little bit better salaries, better benefits, and a better overall set of compensations. Okay. So again, when you're, I'm gearing this slide to picking out a job, but it's the same thing when you're choosing an internship. You need to figure out what you want. Okay. Figure out what you want and what you need. So, if it's a job, I sure hope it's more than just a title that you're looking for. Okay. If you're just going to take a job because you're going to get a business card that says head groundskeeper Joe Smith, well, that's not really going to do a lot for you at the end of the day, because there's not a whole lot of people that really care that, that's your title. And, that's not going to make you new friends at the bar. It's not going to do much for you personally. Okay. So figure out what you want to get out of the job professionally, what you want to work on, what you want this step of your career to be. Again, whether it's an internship or your first job or your second job, you really need to create goals and understand what you want out of that job. And that can change based on where you go. And once you get there and learn a little bit about the facility and the people you're working with and the event load, maybe those things change a little bit, but you should at least in your mind have an idea of what you want to get professionally out of the job or the internship. Again, if you're trying to get a job and you're talking about salaries and job descriptions and professionalism, look into what other aspects of the industry are doing, at your age and where you're looking to go. See what the golf folks are doing, getting paid, and everything that's going on with them, or the Parks and Rec folks, or if you are getting into baseball, look at what the soccer folks are doing, or the football folks, and all that kind of stuff. Really try to educate yourself. You're going to take out of this as much as you put in. So the more that you can research and educate yourself on what everybody else is doing, you're going to have a better idea of what you should get out of that next job and what you should try to demand out of an employer. Okay. So again, whether you're looking at a job or an internship, value the experience of learning. Okay. We're always learning. This is going to be my 23rd year in professional sports and in professional baseball, and I still learn. Every day I'm learning something. Again, it's important to network, to be, texting your buddies and your colleagues and your peers all around sports, because those people are going to be learning different things as you are. And it's good to just have those conversations and make sure that you're both friends and colleagues, because you're going to help each other out. But again, make sure you value that experience of learning when you go somewhere. And again, make sure it's more than just a title. Make sure it's more than just, you wanted this specific job or you wanted to be in this specific city. Make sure you learn as much as possible, especially if you're an intern. Really try to learn as much as you can. But again, coming back to that point that I brought up, that Alan was talking about and Nick was talking about, look at that work-life balance. Think about what you want in life when you're choosing an internship, when you're choosing that first job. What else do you want in life? Do you want to be married with kids? Do you want to have 2 or 3 jobs and just be a workaholic? Do you want to spend all your time at this one job? You need to consider what you want, out of life. And if you want more than work, make sure that you understand when you're searching for internships, when you're looking for jobs, that all those things need to come into play. You need to have those discussions, be frank, be honest, and again, be professional when you're having those conversations. It's important to be respectful, and when you're having those conversations, the other side will probably be much more willing to work with you if you're respectful and professional in the conversation, and don't get aggressive, don't be demanding. Just have a professional conversation and make sure that everybody is on the same page at all times. Okay. Again, when you're getting closer to that interview time, and when you're starting to discuss things and putting together a resume or a cover letter, or having conversations, again, be honest about your deficiencies. When you're trying to make that decision on that internship, or on that first job or that second job, again, understand where you're strong, but also understand where you're not strong and where you really need to grow. And, probably a good decision is going to be someplace that isn't necessarily going to focus on where you're strong already. It's going to be going someplace where you can really work on improving your deficiencies and getting stronger in those areas. Okay. So again, just to reiterate, it's, how do you need to most grow professionally? It's those same kinds of things, from, whether it's, being good on a sprayer or painting, or, human interaction, dealing with events, dealing with budgeting. There's so many different things beyond just turf in our industry. So, really think about how you need to most grow professionally. So again, what type of position is going to allow you to focus the most on those things? Okay, so really you need to ask a lot of those questions about yourself, be honest with yourself, and be honest with other people when you're, figuring this stuff out. Okay, consider the importance of working with a strong mentor. Okay, this is, again, a big point where networking comes in, where, if you're a high school student or a college student, this is where, those academic advisors, professors, etc., maybe some of your peers, colleagues, these are the people that can really help you out with helping to figure out where you can go and work with a strong mentor versus, maybe somebody that's not such a great mentor. Okay, that's something that's really going to go with you for the rest of your career, for the rest of your life, really, because the better the person, and not just the better groundskeeper, but the better the person that you go to work with, that's somebody that you're going to wind up turning to for advice beyond just work and beyond just your career. And so it's important, look beyond the bright lights and the fancy name on the ballpark, or on the team uniform, and think a little bit more about who you're going to be working with, and what you can gain personally and professionally out of that situation. Okay, again, all these things are just reiterating the same kind of points. Consider that overall experience and the opportunities that are going to be presented to you. Okay, so again, when you're looking at an internship or looking for a job, try to think big picture, think about what you can learn, what you can experience, and how that's, what's going to be the opportunity where you can most improve and put yourself in a better place for that next step. Okay, so again, looking back to trying to think about your deficiencies, well, when you pick a job, when you pick an internship, find something where you're going to be challenged, where you're going to have to work hard, where, up to within reason. I mean, you don't want to be working to the ground and go 90 or 100 hours a week and pass out from exhaustion, but, you really should try to be challenged as much as possible. That's the only way you're going to get better. And it's the only way that, you're going to move on in your career and be strong as a professional groundskeeper. Okay, and along with that, think about those long-term goals. Think about how this internship, this job is going to impact your career path. And again, all these things are reiterating the same kind of points. It's just thinking about where you can get better, where you need to get better, and what kind of opportunity is best going to allow that to happen for you. Okay, so when you're applying for that internship or for that job, again, it's coming back to that professionalism. What do you need to do? Write a resume, and a strong resume. A lot of the resumes that I see, yeah, it looks like a sixth grader wrote it in crayon and got translated by their dog. They're embarrassing, to be honest. And I challenge all of you to really get better about it. It's if you get lazy and sloppy with your resume, it tells me that you're going to do the same when you're working with me, and it really makes me not want to hire you. Okay, so put together a good resume. Make sure that you include a couple of references, and make sure they're people who are prepared to speak about you and will be honest about you. That's a must for me. I'm not even going to set up an interview with somebody that doesn't send me references. I do call the references. I'll promise you that every candidate that applies for any kind of position with me, whether it be a job or an internship, I do call references. I know a lot of people in the industry. So probably if you don't include references, but you show where you worked, I know those people, and it makes me really hesitant thinking that you're trying to hide something. From there, it's up to you if you want to include a personalized cover letter. Again, going down to that professionalism, make sure you're checking the spelling, the grammar, the dates, the locations, all those things that you're including in that letter and the resume. We understand that you're probably going to copy and paste 95% of that, but we've been in the same place that you have. But make sure you do take that extra 5 or 10 minutes, read through it, make sure that the job that you're applying for, the internship you're applying for, that's the name, that's the team or organization or facility, that's the date, that's the location, just double check those things. And again, it's the attention to detail. It goes a long way. And, if you're sending something to me, but it's written to Joey Stevenson, who's in Indianapolis, but it talks about being in St. Louis at Busch Stadium and all these different things, and everything's wrong, then again, it makes me think that when I send you out to a task to work on the field, you're probably not going to be too focused, and it's just going to be an okay job. Okay, so once you get to the point where you're in an interview, think about your presentation, whether this is on Zoom. We're seeing today's day and age, it's we're not doing phone interviews anymore. We're just doing Zoom interviews. It's important to see the person. Obviously, if somebody's close by and we can set up an in-person interview, that's even better. But either way, it's coming back to that professionalism. And I'm going to talk about this for a full hour. Professionalism is a very key point, and it's the only way that we're going to get ourselves pushed forward as an industry. Okay, we can only do this one person at a time. It's using professionalism, respect, and doing the right things and taking that extra step all the time. And that's how you're going to push the industry forward. It's how you're going to get better jobs. It's how you're going to get better compensation. Okay, so when you do these interviews, dress the part. You can never be overdressed. Okay, you don't need to show up in a tux, but if you show up in torn jeans or shorts or a ratty t-shirt, again, yes, we go out and get dirty and we work hard in the field, but for an interview, we want to see that professionalism out of a candidate. Okay, so dress either a nice button up, whether or not you wear a tie, whether or not you wear a sport jacket, some nice slacks, dress professionally, dress the part, let us, you're going to tell us from the moment we see you whether or not you really want the job. Okay, if you're in person or on Zoom, make sure you introduce yourself by your full name and pronounce it clearly, because everybody, again, it's going to personalize that interview and that conversation. And whether that's with one person or a group of people, a panel, we want to understand how to say your name, because we don't want to look like idiots and pronounce your name wrong. So make sure you introduce yourself, full name, pronounce it clearly. If you're in person, give a firm, respectful handshake. Okay, be an adult. This is something where this will be old man West talking about how maybe the generation needs to kind of grow up and mature a little bit. Give that firm, respectful handshake and be an adult. Okay, that's going to go a long way. You know, in a conversation, make sure you're not interrupting those people that are interviewing you. You know, we definitely need to make sure that you have time to speak and to answer questions at length. But when we're talking, please don't interrupt us. It's important that we make sure to get the information to you as much as we're trying to get information out of you. You know, when you're answering questions, present thought out responses. No one word answers. No, yep, nope, okay. You know, make sure you give a thought out response. Make us understand where you're coming from. Give us the perspective of where that answer comes from and why you think what you think. Okay. Important point, I think, again, with maturity and professionalism, leave politics out of the workplace, even if it gets brought up by somebody. I'm a very political person. When it comes to work, it stays away. It's not, to me, my opinion, it has no place at work. So again, even if somebody makes a joke or a comment, you know, we really don't know or understand where everybody's coming from. You know, leave politics out of the conversation, especially in an interview. It's just, it's not the place for it. From there, again, you know, being part of growing up, being an adult, you know, personalize the conversation. You know, call people by their names, just like we want you to say your name and pronounce it clearly. Make sure if one of the people who's interviewing you, if there's a panel or a single person, you know, if they didn't say their name, make sure you professionally and respectfully ask that and call people by name. And, you know, make it a personalized conversation, because by doing that, we're going to remember you much more than somebody who's very bland and who doesn't remember who we are, you know, from 2 minutes into the conversation. So just doing some of these things, personalizing the conversation, giving a good respectful handshake, you know, giving a good, well thought out response to questions. You know, these are things that are going to go a very long way in the interview process. And, you know, when we're interviewing you, whether it's for an internship or for a job, we're trying to learn what kind of person you are. Okay. Professionally, we can teach you things, and it's less about experience. For us, it's more about what kind of person you are. How are you going to fit into our team? How are you going to fit into our staff? How well are you going to get along with me? Okay. So have a good, professional, respectful conversation. And end of the day, don't lie about anything. Again, our industry is a small world. We all know each other, especially those who've been around. You know, like I said, this is going to be 23 years for me. I know a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people know us, you know each other. If you start lying about things and we find out about it, it doesn't end well. It's not a good look for anybody. So just make sure to be honest. There's nothing wrong with not knowing something or to not be experienced in something, but don't lie about stuff and say that you are when you haven't. Okay. You know, when it comes to, again, during the interview, when it comes to talking about compensation, I think this is going to differ a lot from internships to a job. You know, in an internship, this stuff is pretty much straightforward. And a lot of these things aren't going to be relevant. It is important to ask questions, and it's going to be more about the job than any of these sorts of things. But do keep these things in mind, so that once you are interviewing for a job, and I mean, some of these things are going to be important even as an intern, but you know, when you're looking for that job, you know, be informed as possible and ask as many questions as possible, and respectfully and professionally make sure you get answers, because a lot of times, you know, maybe if it's a groundskeeper interviewing you, sometimes answers are beyond, you know, some of those decisions are beyond our control, and it goes to a GM. Well, make sure that, you know, if you're going to have a second interview or really can't get clear answers from the groundskeeper, make sure you do ask for a second interview, or that you do ask and follow up to get answers for all these questions, because the more informed you are and the more you know about your different options for experiences and opportunities, the better decision you're going to be able to make. So again, when you're, when you're looking for a job, what's important, there's all different aspects of compensation. Obviously, the first thing people think about is money. What's your salary? Again, we're, as individuals, that's the only way that we can improve our industry, is one person at a time, and really starting to push for better salaries and better compensation. But get clear answers on this stuff. You ask for, what a salary is going to be, and talk about what the structure is for bonuses and for raises. Ask about what compensation looks like for extra events. So like in baseball, outside of professional baseball games, whether you're doing high school games, college games, corporate events, on-field BPs, concerts, Nitro Circus, there's a million different kind of things. And, especially now that the PDL has come in, and these teams are being demanded to do millions and tens of $1 million worth of renovations at their facilities, that money's got to come from somewhere. So you need to be understanding that money, that these events do need to happen. You need to understand that it's important for the organization, but at the same time, you need to be able to professionally and respectfully explain to them how that impacts you and how that impacts the quality of the field. Okay, so again, make sure you're asking about those things, again, more for a job interview than an internship interview. Ask about the health benefits and insurance and dental insurance. Ask about the retirement and investment opportunities. They're going to match 3%, 4%, 5%. There's all kinds of different things that teams are doing and organizations are doing to try to draw people out. Ask about the team or the organization covering moving expenses. Maybe that's $500, even that can go a long way. $1,000, a whole cost of moving expenses. So again, ask these questions. Ask about what their expectations are for working. We work, the turf industry is very unusual in the hours that it demands. Games very often are 7 o'clock games or 6 o'clock games, and it's every single day for a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time. So it's important to make sure that you understand exactly what their expectations are, and if yours vary from theirs, make sure you have that discussion up front. Once you've taken a job, you have no collateral, you have no, there's nothing that you can really do. I mean, they have all the power once you've agreed to terms of a job and employment. So make sure you talk about these things ahead of time. More and more of these facilities are downtown facilities. Ask about parking. That's a big deal. I mean, for us here, we provide parking for both full-time and seasonal folks. That's not the case in a lot of other places. We just had SFMA, we just had our minor league meetings last week. Just talking to a lot of people, parking doesn't get covered at their facilities. That's a big deal. If you're needing to take public transportation, that's going to affect where you can find housing, and it's going to affect what time you can work, because a lot of times public transportation is limited in the hours. If you need to start taking Ubers, or if you need to start paying for parking, if you're going to drive, all these things add up financially. And, you need to understand that going in. Again, you have no leverage once you take a job. So make sure you're as educated as possible through the interview process. Ask about, getting meals and food, whether that's during games, sometimes, on non-game days or non-event days, ask about that sort of stuff, because it's important. Ask about game tickets. Do you get tickets, for your staff in general? Do you get tickets personally? Do you get 2? Do you get 4? Do you get none? Again, ask the questions, ask in a professional and respectful manner, but it's important to know ahead of time, because asking once you're employed and have agreed to terms, you have no leverage to ask for things. And then incredibly important. What we're all part of right now in this conversation is, continued education and continued turf support. Make sure that you ask about membership and whether or not they're going to cover membership to turf organizations, whether that's national or local or regional. Make sure you ask about whether they're going to cover registration, travel, hotel for conferences. These are all important things. Again, you want to be as informed as possible, because that's the best thing you can do to make a smart decision. From the work side, make sure you ask a lot about that too, because that's almost more important than anything. And this is the part that's going to impact the quality of your life and how good or poor of a job you're going to be able to do. So to me, one of the big things is staff size. Ask how many full-time staff, how many seasonal, how many game crew. The size of the staff and the amount of people that work alongside you is hugely important. On going back to talking about how many vacation days you get or how many hours per day you're working. Well, a lot of that's going to be determined by the staff size, and the amount of time you get off is probably going to determine your work-life balance. And the less people on staff, probably the more miserable you're going to be by the end of the season. And unfortunately, that's when people get burned out and wind up either leaving a certain part of the industry or leave the industry altogether. So it's important to understand that staff size and portray the importance of that to the organization that you're interviewing with. Along that, ask about the event load. Like I said, you can ask about compensation for those events. I think that's important knowledge, but just asking about the total event load. Is there stuff going on every single day? Are there just a few big things? Are there constant small events? It's good to understand that, because again, that's going to impact the quality of the field, the wear and tear out there, the amount of time you've got to do the normal maintenance techniques, and it's going to impact your time off and that work-life balance, and whether or not you get those days to go take a day trip somewhere, or to catch up on sleep, or to go have some fun doing whatever. So again, very important. Again, PDL has to do with baseball, but talk about how often they'll do renovations. When was the last time a renovation happened on the playing surface or the field? These things are going to be important, and that goes into event load, into the quality of the field, into the amount of money that the team is probably willing to put into that playing surface. Ask about the fleet. Ask about the equipment. Do they have everything necessary? Again, it's not bad to ask about detail. Again, professionally and respectfully, ask these things. Much easier to ask that kind of stuff to a groundskeeper versus a GM. You're probably going to catch them off their feet, and they won't really be able to give you the best answer in most situations if you're talking to a GM or somebody in the front office. So with a lot of these things, there might be a little bit of a disconnect. So these are definitely questions to ask to a groundskeeper or somebody with good knowledge of our industry. But again, with the equipment, it's not just the amount of equipment, but how is that maintained? Is that maintained in-house? Do you have contracted service agreements? Do you lease? Do you own? Again, all very important questions. Talk about the contracted services, laser grading, deep tying. Do you have a sprayer? Do you spray in-house? Do you pay somebody to come in and spray? There's a lot of different aspects, and even from there, like, are you responsible for snow removal, landscape maintenance outside the facility? Again, all of these things, they're very important to what your job is going to include, and it's all important stuff. You need to know all of these answers to make a good informed decision. Talk about the product budget. That might not necessarily be a dollar figure, but we need to start thinking about value of total products and what we need to use out there. Prices have changed a lot over the past couple of years, whether it be just because of trucking, cost of manufacturing, cost of labor, prices have changed a lot. And so a dollar figure may not equate well to the total value of products that you need to use out there. Talk about trade agreements. We've got a couple of really great trade agreements that we've got here locally with some wonderful partners. It's very difficult to do trade agreements with some of the bigger national companies. Those kind of things rarely make sense for them. So understand that going in and what expectations are. Do they think that you can trade for the bulk of your products and services? You need to be educated on how that process works. Are they for trades in general? Are they against trades in general? Again, these are all things that it's really important to ask these questions up front and get good, thoughtful, respectful, professional answers. And then, super important, ask for where room for growth is within the organization. If it seems like an organization that you maybe want to spend some time with in some years, ask what the rate of turnover is, or, how you might be able to proceed up, and take steps forward to be able to stay within the organization. Even sometimes those kind of questions can put an employer at ease, because if you ask about wanting to stay with their organization long term, keeping retention of employees is always important, because then you're not wasting time training, recruiting, interviewing, hiring. That whole process is not fun. It's just, I don't want to say it's a waste, because staffing is monumentally important, but it is not fun to go through that process. I'd much rather retain good employees than constantly have to search for folks. Okay. And what do you do from there with all that information? You need to make a decision. You need to learn how to negotiate. Okay. Once again, you need to kind of be able to mature and grow up and become adults, and you need to stick up for yourselves a little bit. But again, in a professional and respectful manner. Okay. So when you're going through this decision process, hopefully you've got some different opportunities in front of you. Again, whether it's to set up an internship or for a job. Right now, more than ever, any time in our industry's history, there are way more jobs than there are people. Okay, so you've got some negotiating power. Okay, you've got some leverage right now, because what we need is good people, and we've got more jobs than we do people. I've got more open positions than I do candidates right now here. And that's the case in many, many aspects of our industry. Okay, so, make sure that you're well informed and start thinking about the decision. Okay, going back to stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the hour. What do you need personally? What's the cost of living in that area where you're looking to move to? What are, what are other turf professionals making that area with relative experience to you, with relative workload to you, with relative education? So if you're looking to get into baseball, don't be afraid to try to find out what the soccer guys or the football guys or the golf guys or the park and rec guys are getting paid in that same city, because that's oftentimes a little bit more important than what we are within the industry, is more in that area, because you need to consider cost of living and moving, and things are very relative, and they can change significantly from city to city and area to area. Okay. Don't overvalue, don't undervalue yourself. Be pragmatic, be honest with yourself, be rational. Don't take a job just for a title or just for a job. Be smart, but also don't go in, so don't take that lowball offer. Okay. Always try to negotiate for more. At the same time, understand reality. Don't go in asking for $120,000 for, a $50,000 position. Okay, we need to improve our industry, but we need to be realistic. Okay, we can't jump by, hundreds of percents, within a year. Okay, so just make sure that you're realistic and rational when you're talking money and when you're talking compensation in all these different areas. Okay, don't be afraid to reach out to your peers, to your colleagues. Understand what other turf professionals that they want what's best for you. Have those conversations. Talk to mentors that you've met along the way. Talk to those academic advisors and professors. Talk to other students that you've worked with or that you're in school with. See what they're getting, what kind of options they're getting, what kind of offers they're getting, what kind of experiences they've had. Look out for other people and understand that other people are looking out for you. When you're trying to make that decision and you try to negotiate a number, if you're comfortable, don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to ask for a certain number. The worst they can do is say no. If they do, if you're comfortable taking a number lower than what they're offering, but you're okay with it, then great. If it's too low to where you're comfortable and you don't think that you can pay your bills and pay rent and pay your car and everything else, then don't be afraid to say no to a job. Like I said, we're in a great place for workers. That there are a lot of opportunities out there right now, and there's more positions than there are people. Okay. And again, I just keep coming back to it. Just always remain professional, always remain respectful. Whether you accept a job, whether you turn down a job, just always do things the right way. Be professional, say thank you. Just do the right thing. It will go a long way, because again, we all know each other, and if you go out in a ball of fury and start burning down some bridges, we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to let other people know how unprofessional and disrespectful you are with us. And so other people are going to understand that, and they're going to know. So just always remain, even if it's difficult and challenging, sometimes that's the case, I understand. Just really do everything you can to remain professional and respectful. Okay, so that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A right now. I don't know if anybody has anything that they want to speak up about. Otherwise, my email's been up here the whole time. Feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to go in depth on anything that we covered here.
Thanks, Wes. Yes, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and type those into that Q&A feature that you have on your screen. Otherwise, you can contact Wes separately by email, which is on the screen. Well, it doesn't look like there are any questions. So thanks, Wes. Thank you all for joining us today. We do have another presentation today that starts at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. The name of that presentation is From Cornfield to College Football Field. So make sure to register, then you'll have the information to join and join us for that presentation in a few minutes. So thanks, Wes, and thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.
Okay, thanks.